Hi, and welcome to Real Trail Talk. I'm Donovan D'Souza from The Long Ways Better.
And I'm Mark Pybus from The Life of Pi. Welcome back after a pretty extended break that we took during peak hiking season.
Yeah, I think we both didn't expect it to be quite as long, but
No.
it ended up being a month,
Yeah,
I think.
over a month probably, since we recorded at least.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's peak hiking season. What can you say?
Exactly. So you were off in the Northern Territory and elsewhere around Perth?
Yeah, I went down to, well, we'll talk a bit about Fitzgerald River today, and I also was in Dryandra Woodlands and found myself in Northern Territory for work, which also meant going to see some things up there. And you had a very big...
I did.
Very
so
big.
I was finishing the Billwoman, so I think the week that I was finishing, you were in Perth, and then when I was back, you were over east for work.
Yeah, that's right.
So we didn't really have time to record any pods, but we're back, and I guess that's what you kind of expect in the middle of hiking season.
Yeah, and I think as well so I flew Perth, Melbourne, Darwin, Perth, Melbourne, and I was only home for like 2 or 3 days.
Wasn't long. So we're back at least, and episode 49. So we are going to talk about kind of the south coast, southeastern part of Western Australia. So we'll incorporate Cape Arid, Cape Grand, Esperance, and you're going to do a little rebuttal on Fitzgerald River now that you've finished everything.
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of. I know. I think I'm mostly in agreement, but yeah, I have a few comments.
Okay. So I guess we'll start in the furthest point away from Perth, which is Cape Arid. So how far away? You've done this one. There's the Tagon Coastal Trail, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how far away from, let's just say, Esperance is Cape Arid?
Like an hour and a bit, I think. It's quite straight, just down the road, and then you take the turn into the park. But this is pretty far. If you think that Esperance is already like a 7-hour drive from Perth, so it's another hour and a half on top of that. So it's pretty far, and really the park is massive. So there's a number of walks that you can do there, but a lot of them are extremely inaccessible. You need a 4-wheel drive to get to them, and the Tagon Coastal Trail is probably the most accessible of the lot. And even then it was inaccessible because we were driving down this road that was basically clay, and our tires were just coated, and we were just like sliding, it was just sliding down the road. But in spite of that, it's a very popular national park. But unfortunately it seems to always have bushfires through there.
Yeah, because I remember you were not fretting, but you were worrying quite a bit as you were planning and looking forward to this trip that there were bushfires, and pretty big ones at that, right before you went out. Yeah,
quite severe. One of them closed the Grand Coastal Trail, and there was some fear that they may have closed the Tagon as well, which would have been a complete waste of our time to go all that way, and the two big ones were closed. But thankfully they weren't.
All right, so you mentioned the muddy track getting out there. That kind of surprised me, considering like coastal WA, you just think like boggy sand, but clay that's slippery, and it didn't even look that wet when you went. Do you know why that was the case?
I don't know. I think it's just a very specific microenvironment. There's a lot of, I think past Albany, there's a lot of sort of swampy areas, and I think this is one of those areas that seems a bit swampy. I mean, we were clearing mud out for days after our visit there. We hosed the car down underneath with the jet spray to get it out, because we knew we were going to go to Fitzgerald River, and we still had stuff like as we were in Hopeton, we still had mud falling out, and that's in spite of having hosed down really thoroughly and scrubbed under the guards.
Wow. So you obviously made it to the start.
Yeah.
What's the first little bill? First, I probably should talk about length and where it goes.
Sure. So the Tagon Trail, it's a bit confusing because this is something that I had very different information from various different people. So the full trail is 15 kilometers return because you walk there and back. But some signs say 7, some say, that it's I think I had one that was 12, but it is 15 from start to finish. And the trailhead says this, but for a long time, Trails WA just said 7, I think. And there was similar discrepancies with DBCA's page.
So is it a trail when you get to the end, is there an access point for a four-wheel drive, or do you have to then walk back?
So there are multiple. So you can walk to there and then be picked up with a four-wheel drive, but it's a long bit of beach driving to get there. And there's a spot halfway along that you can get off at. But, we wanted to do the whole thing. Or at least I wanted to do the whole thing. Alyssa didn't do the whole thing.
We'll get to that later. So obviously being a coastal trail, you start right on the coast. And, it is that turquoise, granite headland, white sandy beach terrain that you're in. Very similar to basically most of the coastline along here.
Yeah, so it's... I'd say, the scenery, just as soon as you start the walk... The trailhead's just on the vehicle track, and then you walk down to the beach, and it's just spectacular. It's a typical of that south coast scenery. The sand is bleach white, the water is that turquoise color, and as you say, the granite headlands just give it that that sort of rugged beauty.
And sort of, what do you look forward to on the first start or the first section of the track?
So I think the thing that I'll say here, and I'll say the same thing about Le Grand, is that I feel this trail is from a time when trails were made to be exciting and not gone, we'll risk assess all of the fun out of it. So I think, first of all, you're there and you see these waves crashing against the rocks, and then you're walking up, up a hill that's this granite slope. And probably today they go, oh no, it's too risky, we can't have people do this. But, this trail exists, and it's fantastic. You're walking up these granite slopes, and you're getting to look at the, the many islands off the coast and the full curve of the bay. Yeah, it's just spectacular.
So I guess it's kind of like the same thing they're going through now with the rock fishermen, trying to bring them into line and make them wear life jackets and chains and everything. It's very similar terrain, though, to rock fishing down south, isn't it?
It is, but I think the trail's far enough away from the coast most of the time to not be a problem. There is a spot where there is a ring to save people just in case. Yeah. And I think fishermen do enjoy this trail as an access point to fishing places. Yeah.
So we mentioned the fires before. It didn't completely escape being burnt, did it?
No, there's a little bit of bushfire, signs there, but nothing that I would say was, absolutely devastated. There was a little bit through there, but I think the worst of it was further east. So, in that case, it was, this particular trail got off quite lightly, I think.
So obviously, dotting between the granite headlands are some spectacular beaches.
Yeah.
I just want to go into detail on a few of those, and maybe which one was your favourite of the whole trail.
So I think, the first one was Dolphin Cove, and, it wasn't very long. It's only like about a 500-meter walk along the beach. And what I like about it is when you look at you look to the end of the beach, and there's like the granite sort of mound that is the headlands, and it has a bit of a, like a peak head or a bald head kind of look, but much smaller, obviously. So that's really cool. And the next beach along was Little Tagon, which I think is probably the nicest one. Little Tagon, it's just a small little beach, not very long, but very charismatic. The waves here probably a little bit rough for swimming. And they're unpatrolled beaches. There's not a lot of people, so there's always that little bit of danger with this area. But it just looks so stunning that you want to swim.
Yeah. Getting onto the people, did you see any other hikers or four-wheel drivers or fishermen on your expedition?
We saw 2 people walking near the start, and then they turned around after about a K or 2 Ks. We saw 2 people fishing, and with 2 four-wheel drives, and then on the way back we saw 2 people. So that's it.
So fairly isolated.
Fairly isolated.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people go there to camp and fish, and they don't really interact that much with the trail per se. But I think that's a bit of a shame because it's a really fantastic walk.
Yeah, the photos definitely look amazing. And then from Little Tagon Bay, more granite headlands. So it's kind of like a series of granite headlands with linking beaches.
Yeah.
And then you get onto the actual Tagon Bay. Which looks quite spectacular, and some four-wheel drive tracks there, and a little bit of weather coming in on your hike.
Yeah, so the weather was spectacular and perfect as we got there. But then just as we got to Tagon, it really just started bucketing down. And Alyssa was not in the mood. I think she was pretty tired, didn't really want to do this. So in the end, she decided that she was going to call it quits on the beach. And there was a spot near a sand dune where she could kind of get shelter because the wind was blowing the rain in from the west. And so she was hiding behind there. And I said, no, I'm going to finish this. The long way's better.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't run it up until you do the whole trail. So, I was getting drenched quite heavily walking through the rain. But I, got to the end of the beach. And I think that the ending is like part of it there when you reach. So it's a little bit on from there that you get to the end of the trail. I think that was some of the best scenery there. There's this like massive granite sort of mound or boulder that's standing by the track, and it just frames that perfect sort of final view. And when I got there as well, the rain sort of died down, and for the rest of the day it was basically perfect. And then you get to the end and you get to have like one last view, and you can see sort of the boundary of the national park. You can see just how massive Tagon Point is. So Tagon Point is another sort of peak head, bald head, and this time it is actually a huge granite, mound that's there as the headland.
So pretty spectacular finish, and then it's back the way you came to finish up the trail.
Yeah, which some trails can be like, again, and yes, there was a lot of beach walking on Tagon, but I enjoyed it, and it was it's nice scenery. If the scenery's nice, you kind of don't mind. Yeah.
So I guess from Cape Arid, we'll move to Cape Le Grand. This is one we've both visited, but you have spent a lot longer there doing the Le Grand Coastal Trail, which looks a very spectacular walk, and you rated quite highly. Yeah,
so I did my top 10 hikes in Western Australia before I did this walk, and it's in the top 5 now. It's easily one of the best day walks I've done anywhere in Australia, definitely in terms of coastal walks. It again, like the Tagon Coastal Trail, I feel like this was made and someone just went, oh, people want to see this, and we'll just link everything up like that. And, we won't worry that much about safety. And I think you can see the quality, that they probably spend more money now on trail construction to get things to look perfect and build bridges and everything. And this was just exemplary of how good trails in Western Australia could be.
Because it's a very popular area, Cape Le Grand. If you're not well versed in it, you will know it from Lucky Bay and the kangaroos on the beach. But the actual park, if you explore more than just Lucky Bay, it is one of the most beautiful places in WA. Yeah,
definitely.
Worthy of Instagram snappers and holiday makers flocking there for most of the summer. As you said, it's kind of like a highlights tour of the area that you can actually drive to most of these places, but you found the walking a lot better in terms of experience.
Oh yeah, just the way that, so you start at the the eastern end, or you can start on the western end, but I started from Rossiter Bay and then headed to Le Grand Beach, and so you're heading west across all of the beaches, and this is basically the bulk of the park. So you're seeing the entire coastline from Rossiter Bay all the way to the end, and you could potentially walk to the end of Rossiter Bay and back and see the whole park. But what you're seeing is before I went there, I was sort of a bit skeptical that Cape Le Grand could possibly be as good as the hype.
Yeah.
But it lived up to it, and this trail is just, as you say, like it's like the grand tour of Cape Le Grand.
Yeah, no, certainly when we were there, I was like, oh, I wish we had the time to do it, because I think we only had one night in Lucky Bay, and we did Frenchman's Peak, which we'll talk about later.
Yep.
But yeah, I could see people walking off, and from the Lucky Bay campsite, you can see trails going off to the headlands. I was like, oh, I knew the trail was there. I was like, there's no way I can convince Karis to pick me up and give me time to do it all. But you got that experience?
Yeah, so I was lucky in a way because Alyssa didn't want to do it, but was happy for me to do it because it is a one-way trail. I think it's his biggest weakness, but I can't see any other solution, because any other solution will just add unworthiness to the trail, because you're basically getting quality almost the whole way.
Yeah.
And if you were to loop back through the middle, it's not very exciting.
Yeah, unless you could somehow incorporate Frenchman's Peak into it, but then there's a lot of just like scrubby heathland you'll have to bash through.
Yeah.
To get to it. Yeah.
And my view is definitely always keep trails as excellent the whole way as you can. If it doesn't loop, well, then tough. That's just what it is.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Alyssa had the car. She could meet you at certain points.
Yep.
What was the highlights of this trail for you?
Okay. So, I think when you leave Rossiter Bay and you get across the headlands and you see Lucky Bay for the first time, that's pretty awesome, because you're coming up over these huge granite hills that are along the coast. And I think that's the thing that surprised me was, as epic as Albany is, the scenery in Esperance is even more crazy. Like there's just all those, the archipelago out there, the Research Archipelago, all of the beaches everywhere had these massive granite, boulders everywhere. And the last time I was there was when I was a kid, so I didn't really remember it that well. But seeing it now and having, I guess, the more direct reference, because I've thought about this, I was like, wow, this is, for flat Western Australia, this is extraordinarily rugged. So yeah, that first view of Lucky Bay is fantastic. So, from Lucky Bay to the next beach along at Thistle Cove, the rugged scenery through there is excellent. You're walking up along the coast and you're looking down, from the cliffs to the coast. You're seeing all the islands. There's like a trig point there as well that points out where everything is. That was wonderful. And then from Thistle Cove to Hellfire Bay, and Hellfire Bay is probably, I think, the pick of the lot. And I think you said that to me.
No. Hellfire Bay is a place we didn't get to go to. We went to Thistle Cove.
Okay.
But yeah, we didn't make it quite as far as Hellfire Bay.
Right. Thistle Cove was fantastic, but I thought Hellfire Bay was just spectacular. But the walking between the two, there's this one bit where you're walking along the top of the granite ridge, and then you walk down this steep slope, and then there's this narrow bit of granite you have to walk along, and the waves are coming in just right next to you. And then you come to this cove where it's, as the waves come in, it fills the cove, and then it heads out, on the tide. And you have to time your passage through there because of it. And I'm just like, how did this definitely didn't get made today. Yeah. Because WA is so risk averse, they would not allow that. I'm surprised it even exists still, because it just is something that I don't think is that dangerous, but they would be, oh no, we can't have this.
Well, it doesn't sound dangerous for an experienced hiker like yourself, but
yeah,
I guess there's a lot of people around that aren't necessarily as experienced and could get themselves into a bit of danger.
Yeah.
As we've seen over the last months around the Stirling Range.
But I think that they've rated this as a class 5, I think, this section, so that they have, they have given people
due warning.
Due warning that this is difficult, and it's not an easy walk. I would say that it's probably no more difficult than some trails that in Tassie are promoted as top, among their top trails. Like you look at Frenchman's Cap and say, that's probably more dangerous than this.
Yeah.
And the last bit probably from Hellfire to Le Grand is not as exciting because you're walking through heath and the trail wasn't very well maintained in some spots. But it still was great. Like if you didn't talk about how excellent everything else was, you'd think this was a really good section of trail. Because I know, like Inspiration Outdoors, they only walk up to Hellfire Bay when they do it because they're like, oh, the last bit's not that good. But no, I think it's worth doing.
Yeah.
And there's more to see. Like I think you could do some off-track walking up to the top of Mount Le Grand.
Yeah, I've heard people do that. I researched and I was like, I don't think there's a trail up there, or you're not allowed up there. But I mean, it was a wildland, wasn't it? That couple that hiked up there looked quite spectacular.
And it's basically just a granite slope that you can climb up. It's not tracked, but I don't think it's particularly difficult to get to. Yeah, so that's probably. I mean, this year's been a little bit of a low key year so far for me, but that still would be one of the best hikes I've done this year, and would slot into the top 10 in any year.
Yeah. All right, well, excellent. I'm looking forward to going back and doing that one. So I guess we must move on to Frenchman's Peak, which always trips me up. I mean, earlier I had to think about which one it was, because you've got Frenchman's Cap in Tasmania. But in WA, we have Frenchman's Peak, which is another Class 5 hike within Cape Le Grand. And one, I guess my thoughts were it's only a Class 5 if it's mildly wet or raining.
Yep.
So it juts out. It looks like a little cap, but there is a very steep granite incline to get up. Yeah,
very much so. When you were there, what was the weather like?
It was like sunny and 25.
Okay, so it was basically perfect.
Perfect for it, yeah. And that showed because there was a lot of European tourists going up in thongs. I was just like, you idiots.
Yeah.
But they did have difficulty getting up and down because it's such a steep incline. It doesn't look like it until you kind of walk along the base for a little bit, then do that little U-turn.
Yep.
And you're just confronted with it. You're like, how am I supposed to climb this? And then you're like, oh yeah, you kind of can pick out the little grooves in the granite and you step your way up. But it's still a difficult challenge.
Definitely. Especially, I think, once you get to the... Not so much the cave, but just before that, there's that overhang. Like, once you get to that, it's fine. But from, as you say, that U-turn, when it goes, like, sort of out and then back up, there's some sections there that, the incline is pretty insane.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if it's wet, and granite, you never know when it could be perfectly fine in the wet, and you've got plenty of grip, but then there's just those sections where you're going ass up because it's so slippery.
Yep.
And I imagine in the wet, it really earns its Class 5 rating. But I mean, as you mentioned, once you get to that kind of... I think this is more of a hippo's yawn than hippo's yawn at Wave Rock. Because it looks like it's like an open jaw as you're coming up.
Yep.
But from there, it's quite easy. You wander down and you've got that really, really cool cave, which is left over from when this actually used to be coastline rather than mountainous or hilly.
Because that was created by wave action, wasn't it?
Through the cave. And it's quite big. Like, you think cave, it's going to be tiny, but the roof's, 20, 30 metres from where you stand at the base. And you get that nice frame looking out towards the ocean and the other little hills in the area. I think it is. Is that Mount Le Grand that you're looking at?
Yeah, you can see Mount...
or is that another?
Mount Le Grand's more to the right, I think. But you can see, all the beaches from there. And the summit view is fantastic.
Yeah. So you have to exit the cave and then loop back around and you stand on top. And great views of the archipelago looking back to Esperance. Because you're only about, 45 minutes drive from Esperance.
Yeah.
And you can see, see back to the port. I didn't quite get great... there was sunset when I did it, so the sun was setting towards Esperance, and it was really not cloudy, but kind of misty. Looked really cool looking there.
The thing that I loved about it was I did this. Basically, I did the Le Grand in the morning, And then, because originally the plan was to do this the day before, but it had rained, so I was not gonna do Frenchman's in the rain. So I did it in the afternoon after finishing the hike, and it was a really nice sort of epilogue because I got to look at everything I'd just done.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, I was there, and you realize, these things. I always find it funny with walks because, you'll know this when you finish in Walpole, and you see where on the Bibbulmun track.
Yeah.
And if you're coming from Denmark, there's that crossing at Giants, and that's like 2 days walk.
Yeah.
But it's like nothing on the highway.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what? Is that all? And if you look at the map, you're like, that's such a small amount of a week of walking from Walpole to Denmark is like nothing.
Yeah.
But yet, in this instance, I felt it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like that was quite an achievement.
Because you've basically done the entire park, whereas like Walpole to Denmark, it's 7 days. Whereas you're looking out and going, I was there, and then I was there in a few hours. And yeah, I understand the sense of accomplishment you would have felt at that moment.
Yep.
Yeah. So at Cape Legrand,
really good park.
Really fantastic park. If you're going to go in summer or peak school holiday season, I suggest you book early. There's a booking system now for Lucky Bay to avoid disappointment.
And Legrand has a booking as well now. So, I think Lucky Bay is the nicer of the two campgrounds by a long shot. We stayed in Legrand, but you stayed at Lucky Bay, didn't you?
Yeah, we got there. The booking system hadn't quite arrived, but we got there early enough that there was a tent site available. But, I mean, the one thing I couldn't understand is we got up to go look at the sunrise, and there's 50-odd campsites available. We were the only ones on Lucky Bay out on the beach watching the sunrise.
Right.
Like, you've driven all this way. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess people have their own ideas of what a holiday is. 10
a.m., mate. That's the time you wake up.
Tourist o'clock.
So I should say, when you're quite right by saying you should book ahead, because we decided we were going to do this when we finished Frenchman's Cap in Tassie. So that was... So we were at the airport in Tasmania on like the 1st of January, booking for April. And the reason why we stayed at Legrand was we could only get those days. And I couldn't even get the days I wanted.
Yeah.
We had to move days around to make it work. So, yeah, definitely. If you're considering, especially, I think April is probably the peak because it's, it's the first school holidays. The weather's cool enough that you can go hiking.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely plan ahead.
So I guess we'll move on to Esperance. It's a very nice town. Like, it was better than what I was expecting.
It's better than I remembered when I was a kid. It's come a long way, I think.
Yeah, we came back through here. We did a round Australia trip and then stopped in on the way home. I remember the archipelago being really good to explore. I think we went on a boat tour. But the actual town, I found really kind of... I don't know how to describe, like a really cool coastal town, and because it's so isolated, it's kind of got its own little vibe, and I think there's actually quite a lot of money in Esperance, like quite sneaky money. But then they have a lot of good beaches as well.
Oh yeah.
And you take that coastal drive out to the wind farms and just sweeping bays and granite rocks and islands. It's fantastic out there.
Yeah, I vividly remembered from it being a kid doing that drive. I remember Twilight Beach, and seeing it again, I was not disappointed. It's just outstanding with that rock that has that like cave thing in it.
And you can just basically swim out from the beach. It just looks amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely go back during the summer to Esperance. I know it can get quite windy in summer, but if you get a really nice day, find a sheltered bay, it's heaven.
When we were there, it was about 13 degrees and freezing cold, so we didn't swim.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I think the beaches in Esperance are just as nice as Cape Legrand in a lot of ways.
Definitely.
And it's good that they're so pristine.
Yeah, we were there, and I think it was raining as well and wasn't that warm, but we did go for that drive and also visited the museum in town, which is quite interesting because a lot of history happened in Esperance. Some of it not so good, but then you've got stuff like the Sky Lab crashed near Esperance
Yeah.
in the 80s, and they've got a cool display about that. But yeah, definitely there's lots to check out in town, but be warned, just like Albany, stuff does shut early. So opening hours are not what you'd expect in the city.
Yep. Fair call.
And while we were there, Karis really wanted to do is a walk called the Kepwari Walk.
Mm-hmm.
It takes in the inland lakes. So there's 3 of them it passes by. And that's a really, really cool walk. We did that at sunset, so we got some really, really nice colours over the lakes as the sun was setting. And it basically takes you around some of the lakes, and then there's some little bird hides that you can go
cool.
sit at. And I mean, we were only there for a few minutes at each one, but you could see, shags and pelicans and everything flying around. So to sit there for an hour with your binoculars would be quite fun.
Were any of these the ones that were the pink lake that's no longer pink?
No, we drove out to that one and got the explanation for that. But yeah, we don't go past the ex-pink lake.
But the other lakes are kind of cool and have their own attraction.
Yeah,
anyway.
I would actually like to take a canoe or a kayak back, because you can. They're all linked up by little streams, so you can do 3 or 4 of them at the same time. And yeah, very, very calm. Lots of bird life. Would be a good fun adventure.
Yeah, that does sound really cool. Yeah, very nice.
So I guess we kind of get on to Donovan's rebuttal kind of thoughts on Fitzgerald River National Park. So at the time we recorded the dual podcast, you had only done the Mamang Trail on the western side.
That's right, yeah.
But you returned not long after that to do the Hakea and East Mount Barron. So I guess we'll start with the eastern side of the park.
Yeah, so I did, as part of that trip, we went, Cape Arid, Cape Grand, and then Fitzgerald River, and did the Hakea Trail and East Mount Barron.
Yeah. So you had different thoughts, because you also did it in a different way to what I did. So I did it all in one day from Coinhead to Cave Point.
Yeah.
You did the Hakea Trail as an overnighter, staying at Whalebone.
That's right. So we did it in a weird way, because it's an awkward trail to do because it's a one-way trail. Mamang is probably a better trail to do as an overnight because it has the different return leg. So we started at Hammersley Inlet, walking to Whalebone Creek, leaving our packs there, doing a side trip to Coinhead and back, and then we walked back to Hammersley Inlet. And Alyssa wasn't fussed to do the whole thing, so she dropped me off at Cave Point, and I walked from Cave Point to Hammersley Inlet. So I did the Hammersley Inlet linking trail 3 times. Which is not an inconsiderable length when you've done it 3 times. It's only like 2Ks or 3Ks or something. Yeah. But when you've done it 3 times, you've done it a lot of times.
A good chunk of it, yeah.
Yeah. I really liked everything up to from the inlet to Whalebone. I think that it's a really excellent bit of coastal walking. And Whalebone Creek is outstanding. Someone got offended when I said that it was better than the Bibbulmun Track huts. But come on, it is better than the Bibbulmun Track huts. Not that the Bibbulmun Track huts are bad. No. But it's luxurious.
It's Mundabiddy spec.
Yeah, and the fact that the deck is all wood, so when you're in the hut, you can take off your shoes and not put them on again until the next day, or if you're going to go to the toilet. So I think that's a really nice thing, because the Bibbulmun Track, the sandy floors, I understand why they are, but they are not as luxury as having wooden decking.
Yeah, and I just wrote up the Franklin River post. Like, this is luxury. Walk around in socks.
And that was my first Bibbulmun Track hut. So I was like, this is amazing. So this is a fantastic hut. And then there's a problem here, and that is that. So the whole backstory behind this was that it was meant to be a trail right through the middle, and due to, I guess, a few problems, it didn't get passed by the EPA. I think some activists got ahead of Parks and Wildlife, who were gonna probably go through a good process, but at the time it didn't look very good, and so things didn't end up well, and the trail that which would have been spectacular, didn't get made. And I understand the dieback risks. It's a shame that they couldn't find a way to have both. But so now it's basically a return walk to Quoin Head unless you have a 4-wheel drive. And you were lucky enough to go out there in a 4-wheel drive.
We got chauffeured out by one of the rangers.
Yep.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
So if you're not lucky enough to have a 4-wheel drive that can take, because you said that the road there is really rough, isn't it? Like it's a real high clearance.
When we say 4-wheel drive, we don't mean X-Trail like what we have. This was proper. Like he had the top of the line Ford Ranger.
Yep.
4x4 to get through there, and there's some steep descents, like rocky, eroded gullies that you could only really get to if you've got that high clearance. So don't try it if you've got like a RAV4 or an X-Trail, because it may start out fine, but it gets really, really rough. So just keep that in mind.
So with that in mind, there's no way to get to the end other than, forking there and back, which is, I think, most people, if you look at the book, that's what most people are doing. So the problem here is that the trail quality drops off significantly from Whalebone Creek. And so you're walking along a very boring vehicle track that you have to walk twice. And is it 6 Ks to Quoin Head?
Yeah, 6 or 7 Ks.
So that's 12 to 14 Ks return along a very boring vehicle track. So the worst part of the walk, like the trail is great except for this bit. The worst part of the walk has to be walked twice. And I feel like it's possible that a better track could have been cut closer to the coast, but it wasn't. And that's really sucks because you have to walk this very boring stretch twice. And you can see that some work had gone into building infrastructure on this road, but there's bridges that have been driven over by 4-wheel drives and stuff like that. So, and there's a lookout that like the track, there was meant to be like a side track to the lookout, and it's completely grown over and you can't see that there's a lookout there. So it's a shame that the this part of the walk that's easily the biggest letdown is the bit you have to walk twice.
Yeah.
But Quoin Head is outstanding.
It is epic. I remember just getting there, and we'd been dropped off. I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
How would you I would describe it as like almost famous 5, like coves and beaches and then just wild ocean.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
And I think because, Fitzgerald River has that layered, sedimentary rock look that's very different to, everything else is granite. And this just looks so different to everywhere else. And Quoin Head is made of that rock. And it's probably the nicest feature in the park of that rock type.
Yeah, I would love to get there in a 4-wheel drive with a picnic and just spend the whole day just exploring the beach and the cove and everything. But as a walker, you get there, and did you walk all the way down to the beach, or
I
did you
didn't
stop at the lookout?
I really wanted to, but then I looked at the descent and thought about the extra 6 Ks I had to walk back and went, nah.
Yeah. When we say 6 Ks, the first K probably from Quoin Head back to Whalebone isn't too bad. It's a long single trail, and then you go down into that little gully. Yeah,
but there's like a bit of a waterfall that's dry most of the year, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it was dry when we went, but we had a really dry autumn. But that area is quite cool, and then, unfortunately you get onto that 4-wheel drive track.
And I think maybe the 4-wheel drive track wouldn't be so bad in springtime, because there will be the wildflowers, and there's a lot of hakea on there. But just for that, that's not good enough when other parts of the park look great all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But you did enjoy up to Whalebone, and then the next day returning to Cave Point.
Yeah.
Hammersley Inlet to Cave Point, I think, is some of the best coastal walking in the entire park. So
I think the bit from Point Edward Steps to the start of Hammersley Beach, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you're walking from Point Edward Steps to the start of the beach is probably like one of the most epic bits of scenery, because there's all these jagged formations in the ocean, and there's the waves crashing, and there's the Zorn as well. Yeah, to me, that was just like, wow. And it's only like maybe 1.5 kilometers of like that stretch, but it feels like I was there for so long. Like my pace just dropped because I was just awestruck by how spectacular the coast was.
Yeah. Our pace dropped as well, but for different reasons. This is where we encountered Google Tracker problems. So we're trying to figure out what was going on, and then it started to you could see the weather rolling in. I was just like, wow, look at it all. Like for the other side of Hammersley Inlet or Hammersley Bay or beach, you could see the clouds rolling in, and then as you go up to the top of the stairs, it started raining, and there's that. What's the nature lookout? What's the full name of that one? I've forgotten that. As you get to the top of the stairs and you get through that like Salmon Mallee type
it's like the natural garden, like the rock garden area.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then you can look back and you can see East Mount Barron and over to Hopeton. And I mean, it was raining, but we had double rainbows and it was sunset. I really like that. Was one of the best, as we answered that question about the best hour of hiking in the year. That was my best hour of hiking.
Yep, I can see that. It was really excellent.
And then the Cave Point lookout as you're going down, you're like, this is pretty special to finish. All right, so I guess East Mount Barron.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought that was really good. I think it's the nicer of the two Mount Barrons. However, West Mount Barron, I did it in wildflower season, so that was magnificent.
Yep.
But yeah, really good walk. Can't complain. I love the jagged rocks at the top and how you kind of have to go through the rocks to get there. I can see why that was used a lot in promo for Trails WA. Because, they have that in the Find Yourself in Amazing Places. And yeah, it is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it is, it's not just you walk straight up and you can see the summit. I think it's a three-piece hike where you hike up and you're looking back towards the mid-barrens and the beach and everything, and then you kind of weave in and out the rocky section, and then you go up through the big boulders and everything to the summit, and the views from the summit are amazing. It's a Colham Inlet.
Yep.
Looking back, you can see Hopeton, you can see the Air Range, you can see the mid-barrens. It's just an epic spot just to sit and have a look.
Yep, for sure.
What time of day did you do that?
Afternoon.
Yeah. I thoroughly recommend doing this at sunset.
Right.
If you can get a cloudy day, even better.
We didn't have that kind of luck. I think we did it mainly, so we did it basically as a recon, because the next day we were doing the Heikia. So we drove into the park and had a look around. We're like, oh, this is really nice, because I think they've spent so much money on the eastern side, more so than the western side, and everything. It's definitely worth, even if you're not a hiker, I think it's worth driving through the park, because it I always say this, and I said it again when I came back from West Mount Barron. I always worry that I've viewed it with rose tinted glasses, but then every time I go, I'm like, nah, this is one of the best parks in Australia.
Yeah. No, I understand, because Karis and I went over Easter last year, and then I got to go back a month later with the Google Tracker, and the western side of the park, getting to Point Anne, and you get to that rise, and you can see it. I was like, yes, this is exactly how I remember, even more special. So, yeah. I guess we'll get to the western side of the park. So a week or two ago now,
3 weeks now.
Yep. 3 weeks now. We were going to do a Stirling Ridge walk repeat, but we looked at the weather a bit further out and it wasn't looking good, so we both kind of changed our plan.
We kind of left it a bit open, and we looked at it and went, no. And I'd already taken the leave, so I thought, you know what? I never have a 3-day weekend. I'm going to go to Fitzgerald River. And
it's a long drive for a 3-day weekend.
It's a long drive. I mean, I did a lot of short walks. I did 2 very short walks in Fitzgerald, and then I did, dry and draw on the way home. But I did West Mount Barron first, and, again, it's that wow amount of wildflowers. And I remember talking to someone about this in terms of Tasmania. They were talking about, how wonderful the wildflowers. I was like, you ain't seen nothing.
Yeah. Come
to
WA.
Exactly. And this mountain it's so small. It doesn't have the rugged beauty of East Mount Barron. But the wildflowers are amazing, and they change as well as you go up to different elevations. You know, some things that are blooming here aren't blooming there. Different things are growing in different areas, and just the amount of color on this mountain, the amount of different species that are growing here, and I'm sure if you looked more carefully than I did, you'd see things that I didn't see, like species that maybe it's, you know, a super rare thing that I don't know because I don't know these things. You'd probably be like some orchid that's there that I didn't even notice. So, you know, that was great, and the views are fantastic from the top. But mainly I was just, you know, the wildflowers really blew me away.
And it's something that you remarked, I was like, yeah, I found that as well, is the wildflowers coming down are easier to spot than they are going up.
That's very true. I think because you're thinking about getting up.
Yeah.
And there's that anticipation for the summit. Whereas on the way down, it's relaxed. You're just going with the flow.
Yeah. You kind of don't want it to end either, so you're slowing down. It's like, yeah, I'll go look at that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, one thing about West Mount Barron I always find funny is that the mountain or the hill directly in your view looking east is Mount Bland. I was like, what a stupid name for a hill.
Yep.
Like, give it something better, but I guess that's what they've gone with.
Yeah, I mean, they've called them the Barrens, you know, like...
Yeah.
They didn't think very much of this area, and they were wrong.
They were very wrong. It is one of the most biodiverse regions in the whole country, basically. Yep. And then your last walk... Oh, I hope this is your last walk within the western side of the park.
Well, I did two, but I've chosen to not write up the other one because I don't deem it worthy of being written up.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the one that you did write up, which is the Point Anne Heritage Trail.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we've had good fun trying to find out these heritage trails and hike them over the years. And this one actually has a lot more heritage.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Attached to it.
Yeah. You know, having the rabbit-proof fence along it. I think, so for me, this was, I said to you as I was doing it, I messaged you and our other friends about it, and I said, to me, okay, it's only 1 kilometer long, but it's a perfect walk. I can't fault anything about it, because it's a loop, but it's not a loop for no reason. It's not just to return you. The loop out takes you past the rabbit-proof fence, and then the return journey takes you along the coast. So you get to see things at every point, and being in wildflower season, there were wildflowers along the trail. You get to the end of the of the point there, of Point Anne, and you get to see, you know, rugged coastline on one side with waves crashing, and then the other side you get the calm of the bay, and you get to see the Mount Barrens. Just spectacular, you know. It's an example of, I wish that we could do this at a scale of a 10K walk of this level of quality. But I don't mind a walk that's short if the quality level's like this.
And that's what gets me about this area is you've got the Mamang Trail on one hand, which is an overnight hike or a day hike, depending on how fast you're going. And then you've got this 1 kilometer Point Anne Heritage Trail. And there's, I mean, apart from West Mount Barron, there's nothing else. I think there could have been a few more options they could have thrown in and made this a real destination for hiking. Yeah. But as it is, I mean, you've got a really long trail that most people will just walk down the beach and come back. And then the Point Anne. But, I mean, spectacular location. They've spent a lot of money on the facilities here. Yeah.
Yeah, like the day use area is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think our reference is like a little Cabana.
That's
beach
exactly
hut.
what I was going to say, like a cabana, you know, like they've got like 2 shelters, they've got heaps of barbecues, the beach is a beautiful beach.
I just imagine like a night market there, and you've got like fairy lights all over the huts or the shelters, some food trucks, you know, like a little beach party going on down below. It'd be fantastic there.
Yep.
But obviously very, very far away from anything.
From anything, yeah.
So I guess we'll talk about the last one, which is labelled as a hike or a walk, but it's just like, you get there and you're just like, why? And is it Mount Maxwell, isn't it?
Mount Maxwell, yep.
Is it 250 metres or 200 metres?
It's 250 metres one way, so it's 500 metres return. but I feel like that's overstating the length.
It is. I remember we did this on the trek because we're ahead of schedule, why not? And it took longer to put the trekker on than it did to actually hike it. I got to the end, I was like, that did not feel like 200 meters. I reckon it's 100 meters, if that.
Yeah, I felt like that. And, I was prepared to write it up. Because I thought, 3 trails. And then I got there, did it, and went, you know what? This would be 3 or 4 photos. This is unworthy of being written up as a trail. As it is, I'm running up a 1 and a 1.5 kilometer trail. I can't justify this.
The only thing it's got going for it is it's on the way out or in.
It's free because isn't it outside of the... Isn't it after?
No, because it's on the gravel road.
It is on the gravel road? After the entry?
After the pay station.
Oh.
So if you've come just to do this trail, you're paying $13. But I mean, the views aren't even that good. That's what gets me. You're
better off driving to Point Anne and just going there and be like, wow, this is great.
Exactly. Or going to West Mount Barron and then just hiking up a few hundred meters to get some views.
Yep.
It's just crazy. So I have no idea what they were thinking with that.
Yep.
But there you go. So that is kind of the southeast coast of WA and what we've done. I know there's certainly more out there. And we'll probably be returning, no doubt, in the future. Yeah, I can definitely. There's the island that's off Woody Island. Yes, that's off there, and there's trails there. So Woody Island's off the coast of Esperance, and there's trails there that I'd like to go back. And there's so much more to see, I think. Yeah, one thing that I really wanted to do while I was there, but I kind of ummed and ahed, was Peak Charles. Oh yeah, which is, I think it's about 150 k's north of Esperance. Yeah, on very dirt roads. Yeah. So Google said it took 3 hours one way, but I doubt that. Yeah. It looks really spectacular. Maybe one day. Yep, definitely. Yep. So that was our pod. Welcome back, and yeah, it's good to be back, and hopefully we'll have our regular scheduling going forward until at least summer. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode and had any feedback for us, you can give us a rating on Podbean, iTunes, or any of the other platforms that you are listening to us on. Ratings really help us to, I guess, reach an audience to let us know, what you like and what things we could do better or what we are doing well. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with our 50th episode.